Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about remote medical coding for beginners. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. All right, because we are still in this pandemic, it has changed the landscape of how new medical coders start. So there's a lot of medical coders that are brand new to the field that are working from home as their first job, and that's the way that they're getting started. This is not normal. This is not a normal process, because normally, if we were not in a pandemic, people who are working from home have had years of experience. So, because that is typically what remote coding positions require. But because we're in this pandemic, we all have to learn and adapt. So that is what a lot of facilities are doing. There's a lot of facilities that are willing to take on brand new medical coders. Sometimes they train them for a couple of weeks, a few weeks maybe at the facility, and then they send them home. Sometimes they just send them home and they know they're going to have to work with somebody brand new. So that's why they sort of accept it and just sort of work it out. It depends on where you're applying. But if you're brand new and you're trying to immediately work from home, that is your total goal, here's the thing. Yes, right now it may be so that you can work at home, but this does not mean that this is permanent. It just depends on how long this is going to take to get under control. Clearly, this has been going on since last year, since 2020, and we are in the beginning of 2021, and hopefully we are having some sort of end in sight, but whatever the case may be, just know this. If you are starting to have your first job at home, these are just some tips and pointers. If you're brand new, it's a lot when you're starting out in your first job as a medical coder, let alone adding the stress of you're going to be at home by yourself, having to code these records. And of course, you're going to have tons of questions. There's a lot of people who think that it is so easy to do this and it's so easy to code from home. Oh, I immediately want to code from home. Well, here's the thing. Yes, it might seem like it's a great idea, but when you actually get into the thick of it, when you start stumbling onto harder charts and harder, more complicated encounters, that's when you're going to really wish you were with somebody or you had somebody to reach out to sort of help and guide you through those times when it's just like it's not so clear what you're looking at. But some of the things that I'm going to talk about today are some of the ways to make it easier on yourself, because medical coding is a very independent, autonomous field as much as it is a team sport, right? But you do have to learn how to do your research. A lot of times I do suggest books with the Optum 360 coding series, and a lot of people will ask me, why do you recommend them? And they haven't even given them a chance yet. So a lot of times if you're asking me why, I look at a book because I'm a book lover, all right? And when I look at a book, I look at the components of the book. I look at how comprehensive the book is. There are many books out there about medical coding. Not every single one of them I recommend. Optum 360 has been the one that has been the most consistent in their material. Now, this is not an ad for Optum 360, but I'm telling you guys what I feel is most beneficial to medical coders. Once I discovered these, the amount of detail in these is amazing to me. And I really like their very straightforward, very plain approach to the details. And that's what I like because I'm a very details person. So if I am recommending that you guys get a coder desk reference for procedures, for the coder desk reference for diagnoses, or the coding companion, do yourself a favor and actually look at it before you ask, what else do I recommend? Because these are very comprehensive. The coding companion, if you are finding yourself going to be working in a specialty clinic, the coding companion is really going to help you, because the coding companion has, and is broken down by different specialties. So they have podiatry, they have ortho, they have gastro, they have cardio. They have all the different specialties. If you go to the Optum 360 coding website, which I will leave that address in the description box below, it has all of the procedures that fall under that category of specialty, right? And then for each procedure, it also has the corresponding diagnoses that could potentially go with that procedure. So that is a very helpful resource, especially if you're brand new in the beginning and you're trying to find your way. Because if you're using an encoder with your facility, and an encoder, if you don't know, is like an electronic code book, okay? Not all encoders are created equally. I happen to use the 3M encoder, which I think is great. It's got a lot of really good information in it. It will also flag if you have, it has like the coding clinics and everything, and it will tell you if there's like an edit that will pop up. If this diagnosis does not make sense with this procedure, it will flag it, because like they're saying, hey, look at it again. And so there's a lot of really helpful things to using the encoder. The thing about the encoder is that you can't get too dependent on it. Always keep up with how you're looking up things in the book later on when you're studying on your own, because don't ever get rusty and lose your speed with looking up things in the book manually. Because if you do, when you go to take your next certification, if you are planning to take another certification, if you start to lose your speed, it's going to hurt you when you take your certification exams, because you have to have your speed. And don't ever lose that speed, whatever you do. That is my biggest bit of advice, because I was guilty of this, losing my speed. And it hurt me. It hurt me for a long time. So now I'm getting back into it. So, but it does hurt you if you lose your speed. But working at home, right? Getting back to that. If you have things like, if you have an encoder, great. Again, I do recommend getting yourself a coding companion if you're working in a specialty clinic. Sometimes I've seen a lot of folks that are working in specialty clinics that are the podiatry clinic. Optum 360 Coding has a wonderful coding companion for the podiatry specialty. So that is something that you should know. And from the last time I checked, which was just a couple of days ago, they still had their sale on the 2020 books. So if you are still interested in those, they are at a very cheap price. And yes, you can still reference a 2020 coding companion, the desk reference for procedures or diagnoses, even for this year. Some of the stuff may have updated, but it's not so drastic that that book won't be able to help you, because yes, it will. When you're at home and you're having to do all this research on your own, the internet is a really good source of help. If you can't find a coworker to get on Messenger with, or whatever you're using, Microsoft Teams or whatever. If you can't do that, always try to look for yourself and try to find the answers on your own, because that's essentially what you're going to be doing when you're working at home. And the more that you find resources to help you, the better off you'll be. Like, if you're coding for the Orthopedic Clinic, there's orthoinfo.org. That is a wonderful website that will help break down in layman's terms, all kinds of conditions, whether it is an organic condition or an injury. It will break down, and so that it will make more sense to you when you're trying to code through a chart. So that is something that you should know. When it comes to getting distracted, you got to keep your distractions to a minimum. Being at home and working from home is, let's see, how do I say this? So there are many distractions to working at home, clearly, and obviously all of us being in the situation of the pandemic, and a lot of our families are still at home too. So you have some folks who have their children at the house too, and so it gets a little bit distracting. But you really do have to try to make being at home and working at home like you're going to the office. So I do recommend dressing up, because even when I was working from home for a while when the pandemic started, I am back at the office currently. I do have my own office, so there's that. It keeps me in my own little office. I have a door and everything, so it does keep me safe, and I do try to practice safety at all times. I don't try, I do. But when you're at home, right, and you're doing all of your work at the house, I do recommend getting up, dressing up like you normally would if you were going to the office, because this gets your mind in the mode of working. If you are just, oh, I'm just going to wear my PJs and just sort of work, it's easy to sort of slide into that really, there's no sort of, well, I mean, how do I say? Because I'm trying to say, like, not lackadaisical attitude, but just sort of a very relaxed, and sometimes it's so relaxed that you don't get into what you're doing. So that is something that you got to be aware of. Okay. So you just have to sort of keep yourself, focused on what you're doing. And again, try not to get distracted. Keep everything, your distractions, to a minimum. I don't recommend leaving the TV on unless you're one of those people that just listens. But if you get distracted by watching the TV, turn the TV off. If you need music, music is a great way to stay focused. At least for me, sometimes it does help me. I it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in that day. Sometimes I will listen to country music. Sometimes I will listen to classical. It just depends. Sometimes I'll listen to pop. Sometimes I'll listen to rap. It just depends. Rap is not anything that is too raunchy, the things that I can't understand, or it's like whatever. But I do have some that I do like. It's the little catchy ones. So I listen to everything. And I think that that's important when you are, when you're trying to stay focused on whatever it is that you want to get done for the day. So staying focused is really, really important when you're at home. Again, try to treat it like you are at the office. You're not going to have time to stop, get started, go make yourself breakfast, come back, and then, oh, I'm just going to throw in a load of laundry and then come back to this. No, you have to stay focused, because once you start and you're in the record and you're trying to keep concentration, you really do have to stay concentrated on what you're doing. Because the second you start and stop, it's going to be really difficult for you to be able to maintain productivity, and not only that, to be able to maintain accuracy. Those are the things that go hand in hand. The standards for being at home, as far as like productivity goes, are a little bit higher than those that are working in the facility, because when you're working in a facility or in a doctor's office, naturally you're going to get a lot more interruptions than you would be if you're working at home. Now, working at home, they say, okay, well, you have no excuse because you should be concentrating on what you're doing. So if that's the case, you guys have to remember that concentrating is really, really big. Another thing is you have to make sure that your area is secure. A lot of times people think that, oh, I can just be in the living room and just have my screen out. You can't. You have to treat it like it is, like, again, like you're in the office, but you have to secure the area, and it has to be on a secure connection. So it can't be just willy-nilly. Anybody can look at your screen. That's the way that it is, because you wouldn't want your information to be out there for the world to see either. So that's why you have to keep everything secure. The HIPAA rules still apply to you when you're at the house. So if you are in an office space in your house, that is great. But if you need to be in an area where there's a lot of people, then you need to make sure that that area is secure. If you have to partition it off, do what you have to do. But it has to be secure. And there is no excuse for not securing your area. Okay. Again, the standards are going to be a little bit higher because you're working from home. And that's the way that things are. Some facilities will have you have a camera on you so that they can make sure that you're working at all times. Some do that, a lot don't. It just depends, again, on the facility. So there's a lot of it just depends stuff. But if this is your first time and you're out there and you were lucky enough to get a job working from home, that is really great. And how you perform now, being that you're brand new and that you're doing this and you're getting into the swing of things, is going to really reflect on your future positions. Because if you decide to move on from this position and you decide to get another job later on, they are going to see where you were. You're going to have to say, well, I was working remotely for this facility, and I was able to keep my production at this. I was able to keep my accuracy at this. This was my first job. And that's either going to let them know, hey, this person takes it seriously, because typically to be able to get a job working from home, you'd have to have 3 to 5 years of experience first. And a lot of times people who are coming out fresh out of school don't know that because the school will tell them, oh yeah, you can work remotely, but they leave out that little part of, you have to have experience before you can get started working from home. And oh yeah, it's really easy. You have an encoder that'll help you. It doesn't mean that you fully understand and comprehend what you're reading so that you can get the correct codes in the encoder. Because believe it or not, you can still get the wrong codes when you're working with an encoder. Now don't panic. I know I can just hear somebody just right now. Well, what do you mean I get the wrong codes? There are different pathways in the encoder because it'll ask you questions in order to get to the final code, correct? And so when you do, if you answer the question incorrectly, or if you don't quite understand what you're looking at and you select the wrong pathway, it can lead you to the wrong code. Okay, so there, case in point, there's a blood clotting disorder that's a D code, and then there's a clotting, the prothrombin time, the abnormal prothrombin time, that is for like if you're taking like medication and it is thinning your blood too fast. That is related to a medication, not related to something that's organically going on in your body. So that's an R code. So D code, R code, there's two different things that it could do. But if you are selecting the correct pathway, you'll get the correct code. But it's easy to come up with two different codes if you're not quite sure what you're reading. So there is the difference there. Try to look for somebody that can be a mentor for you, that will help you through this time, to sort of guide you, because this time you're going to need somebody. And before you go and ask the person that is maybe assigned to help you, sometimes it's a lead coder, or sometimes they'll buddy you up with somebody else. Before you ask them tons of questions, make sure that you are being very selective about the questions that you're asking. When I say that is, like, if you can find something out by looking it up on your own, do that. Don't ask the person unless it's something that you absolutely got stuck on. You've gone through all of your research methods, and as far as like using the book or Googling the answer, trying to Google the answer, trying to figure out what to do in this situation before you go and ask the other person. Because if the other person feels like they're being taken advantage of because you're just asking questions, you know, they're going to be less likely to want to help you. So don't refuse help, but at the same time, try to find things out on your own first, but don't spend so much time spinning your wheels to try to figure out an answer when it is just as easy to try to look it up or make a decision, you know, whether to code it this way or that way. So there's going to be times when you're going to feel like you get stuck in that spinning wheels type deal, and you're going to be like, well, should I code it this way? Should I code it this way? Should I code it this way? That's when you can reach out for help and say, I've done my research. This is what I found. This is what I came up with. And this is also another option. I don't know which way to go. And so then the person will know that you have tried. Okay. So that is very, very important. It's important that you conduct yourself in a way that your coworkers are going to know that yes, you may be new, but it does not mean that you are not a worthy teammate, and that you are doing your best in the situation that we are all in currently, being at home, right? Coding from home. So, you know, that is one of the things that I would recommend, because a lot of people think that working from home is easy. And then when they start doing it, they're like, wow, I had no idea how hard this was. And I got many emails from new people that were like, this is really hard to be at home and not with, you know, like a community of coders around you. Yeah. And especially when you're brand new to the field and you don't have any connections. Yeah, it's another one. I still recommend not getting into Facebook medical coding groups, because a lot of them are bad. There's some people that will write me and say, well, Blue, no, I have a really good one. Yeah, those are few and far in between. So again, I would limit the number of things that you reach out to like that. Really try to go with the associations. And if they're having their virtual meetings, try to make connections there, just to try to get, you know, connected with somebody who can help you in times of need, you know, when you feel like you're really stuck. So that is very important. And it's also important to continue to study. above all else, if you were lucky enough to get it at home, your first job, then you got to really run with the fact that you're going to have to study even harder to be able to keep up, because there's going to be things that you're going to, like concepts that are going to be a little bit weird to you, right? But the more that you study and the more you go over the materials, whether it's in the book or whether it is watching videos on surgeries, the easier that it's going to get. You don't have to understand everything 100% right out of the gate. Nobody does. And so that's one thing I will let you guys in on. Not everybody understands everything 100% of the time and 100% right out of the gate either. So when you are in those situations, don't get down on yourself. Just keep going. Whatever you do, keep going, because getting down on yourself is not going to help you to grow. It's not going to help you to learn. The only thing it's going to do is aggravate and frustrate you, right? So you have to keep making sure that you give yourself that positive talk. Be around people that are positive. You know, if you're reaching out and you're looking at on LinkedIn or these other groups or whatever, make sure you're connecting with positive people and doing things that way. If you're interested, I do have my Patreon channel where I do exercises on coding. I do exercises on medical terminology and anatomy. That is something to still stay on top of even if you're out of school. So that is my recommendation there. I will leave the link for my Patreon channel in the description box below if you're interested in that. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. But if you are working from home and this is your first job, congratulations. Just do the best you can and make sure that you study, and always look for really good resources. Try to find specialty websites for whatever clinic you're assigned to. That will really help you. And if you are having to reach out to providers or anything like that, if you're doing that already, make sure that whatever you're writing is written in perfect English. All right, make sure that you go over it. There's no excuse for run-on sentences. There is no excuse for bad grammar. There is no excuse for improper sentence structure. You guys have to bring your A game when you're at home, okay? Because remember, we're all disconnected, right? And so they have to have a good impression of you, at least when they're reading whatever you have to say. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this one up. So if you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider, or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. I will see y'all next time. Bye.